Welcome back to our Crew Tech training. In this video, we will talk about pressure washing. For pressure washing, preparation starts at the yard. Before leaving the yard, make sure to have all the necessary equipment needed to do pressure washing. This is why checking the work order is important. At the back of the day sheet is an itemized list of equipment needed when doing pressure washing. These include the following: pressure washer, pressure hose, fuel, pressure washer wand and wand tips, extension pole and brush head, and a tool bag which includes spare parts like O-rings. Upon arriving at the job site, make sure you familiarize yourself with the area that you're pressure washing, as well as locating where the water taps are. When setting up for the job, hook up the garden hose to the in-feed of the pressure washer, making sure it's tight. Next is to hook up the pressure hose to the machine. And last is to hook up the pressure hose to the wand. Before turning on the pressure washer, make sure the pressure washer has enough fuel.
Fuel up the machine. All you have to do is you have to take the jerry can, take the first black cap off. There's always going to be a bit of a stopper plug, and you want to make sure you set this down somewhere where you're not going to lose it. And then you're going to bring out the spout and thread the black nozzle back through. And then you're just going to crank it back on the jerry can, and you want to make sure it forms a nice tight seal. As well, you want to make sure this ribbing is at the top. From there, all you're going to do is you're going to open up this spout on the top, and you're going to want to make sure that the fuel is completely full before you start the pressure washer. Reason for this is you want to make sure you're most efficient, and you don't want it to die as soon as you get going on your job. It's always good to start the job with a full tank of gas. And you can actually see it coming up. It's about, I would say 3/4 or 80% full. And at that point, that's kind of as full as you want to make it.
When loading fuel in the pressure washer, it is best to avoid using the last cup of gas in the jerry can, as this may contain debris or water that could cause complications with the machine. Make sure to not load the gas in the customer's lawn, as the gas might spill over and could kill the grass.
The next thing we got to do before we start the machine is you got to take a piece of paper towel and you have to check the oil. Now, if you haven't done that before, it's a really simple process, but it's probably the most important one. If you skip it and we run a machine without oil, then basically it'll seize the engine and that'll be it. It'll be said and done. So the first thing you do is you take out the dipstick, you dry it off with the paper towel, and then you're just going to thread it back in to the reservoir. From there, it's a good idea to let it sit for just like 5 or 10 seconds, and then you pull it back out, and you want to make sure that there's oil all along the dipstick, like so. Generally speaking, it's not an issue, but definitely if you notice a machine that's running low on oil, it's really, really important to mention the next time you go in the shop. And we got to make sure that we top it up, so that the next crew taking the machine out doesn't run into the same issue.
And last is to turn the water taps on. Here are instructions on how to turn on the pressure washer.
Now, first things first, you got to make sure that the machine is set to the on position. If it's not, you can pull on the pull cord as much as you like, but you're not going to have much luck. So first things first, make sure that the machine is set to the on position. The second thing you want to do is you want to come around to the back here. There's kind of 3 different dials. So this is the full engine throttle, and you can see what the reading is there. So turtle being the slowest, up to max, which is of course the rabbit or the hare. And for this, we probably just want it at the lower portion of the spectrum. Right here, we have the choke, and then we have the fuel on off. So when you're transporting it, it's a good idea to have it in the off position. That way, if the machine topples over or dumps over, it's not going to continue to let out fuel. But of course, when you're ready to run the machine, it's important to have it on the on position. Otherwise, it might start, but then it'll soon kill the engine, just because, of course, it's not getting fuel. Now, if you're starting a machine that's cold, the way you start it is you always start it with the choke on. Now, as soon as it turns over once, we're going to back that off to the off position. Now, if you don't do that and you continue to try and pull it or run it with the choke on, you're going to flood the machine and it's going to kill itself. If it gets really flooded, lots of times you have to give it some time in order to let the flooding kind of dry out, and then it'll be able to be fired again. So again, we're going to put it to the choke position on, and we're only going to leave it on the choke until the engine turns over or starts to sputter. Okay, so again, it's a cold machine, so I'm going to turn the choke on. If I've already been running the machine, then there's no need to choke it again, likely. You'll be able to start it with the choke off, but that's not the case here. And then we have the machine set to the on position, and now it's just a matter of pulling it until it turns over. As soon as that happens, I'm going to back the choke off and give it a little bit more fuel. Like so. Okay, now in order to shut off the machine, the best way to do that, you never want to just kill a machine that's revving quite high. So the best way to do that is you want to simply take the throttle, rev it right down, and then come, of course, over to the side here, and then there's the off switch, and that'll kill the machine. We are pretty much ready to go. I'm going to turn the machine to on. I'm going to choke it just because it hasn't been running for too long, and I'm going to pull it. And right there, it sounds like it doesn't need any more choke, so I'm going to back that off. And then just rev it up slowly. Like that, and we are good to go and start our pressure washing.
Keep in mind that when pressure washing, it is best to avoid any electrical components. Also, do not point the pressure washer wand at somebody, always point down when not in use. When pressure washing, you want to be systematic on how it's done. Do it in a sweeping fashion like when using a broom.
And it's almost like I'm going board by board. Again, I'm going to avoid the electrical components. And it's basically like the equivalent of sweeping. All you're doing is you're using the water pressure to push across the boards. And it's not a matter of digging right deep into one specific area. If needed, we always do have the scrub brush and extension pole, and you can scrub away at an area that might have a lot of grease or debris caked on the siding. But for the most part, you want to treat the pressure wash nozzle just as you would a broom when you're sweeping a surface.
When pressure washing in high areas, use the extension wand. Make sure to shut off the pressure washer and water tap first before switching between wands. Use minimum throttle as the pressure might cause you to outbalance. Get your footing first, then continue with the job.
Past that, you're going to use these little red hinges here to format the wand as high as you want it to go. So something like this would require almost the full length of what we can possibly do. And like the other wand, it's important that you're dispensing. You can kind of rotate the tip so that you're coming at an even or vertical disbursement through the tip. Sometimes it'll come out at an angle or horizontal, and of course, that's not going to be ideal. So that's basically it. And once we put it up, we'll notice that it's pretty much at the right height, like that. Again, we don't want to hit the softening, but we want to get pretty much right up to the top of the wall itself. And then I'm just going to do my systematic approach right along the top and work my way down to rinse it all off. Trying to keep relatively the same distance away from the wall. And if you're noticing any additional sudding, it's good to just go pop back up and keep hitting it until the suds run clean. So pretty much getting right to that fascia chunk here. And again, it's always good to avoid those soffits, anything electrical, and come downward instead of going up or behind. So I'm gonna pick up where I left off. And then when it's time to bring it down, you just release the red lever and get it to the height that you're looking for. One final thing that's really important to point out is you always want to consider what the under or overlap looks like when you're doing vinyl siding. It's hard to illustrate that on this Hardie plank, but basically if the siding is laid in such a manner that it allows you to lodge water behind the panel, that's something you definitely want to avoid. So you want to hit it from the other side. Basically, you never want to shoot up or behind one of the overlaps. Otherwise, when you leave, it's going to continue to drip. It's also going to lodge water in behind, in between the wall and the siding, and it's going to have a lot of issues in terms of what the quality is, as well as it could bring on potential damage as well.
When there's a leak between the hoses, you might want to check the O-ring to make sure it's not degraded.
And once you shut off the water, you're going to basically just disconnect the wand. Now in here, you're going to be able to see that there's no O-ring left inside. It's going to be really difficult to see on the video, but basically it's going to be set just behind the bearings inside the quick disconnect. So again, really simple fix. All you need is one of these washers or O-rings, just like so. And you can basically just kind of push it inside the hole like so. You just got to make sure you have the right size, and you want to set it right back inside where it wants to sit. And then once it's back inside, you can basically just pull back the coupler again, put the male end in, and then we're ready to spark up the water again, and it should be able to hold the water now. And I just turned the water back on, reattached the wand to the pressure hose, and there you have it, we're good to go. So it's holding the water, and it was all just a result of a simple O-ring missing or detached or broken or what have you. Now I want to demonstrate how to pressure wash anything concrete, like a driveway or a sidewalk. Again, it's really good to use the analogy that it's basically like using a broom, and you basically want to just be sweeping the water from a very systematic approach. It's really, really important that everything gets covered at the same distance, and in order to do that, basically what you want to do is you want to kind of lock your shoulders and basically comb through so that this tip in itself is shooting the pavement or the surface at the exact same distance as well as perspective. So in order to do that, I'm just going to basically start and carve an area out, and then I can kind of get to the point where I'll be able to get behind it. So something like that, I now know that this area has been done, and then it's a matter of just approaching it very systematically. So it can be done in any direction. It's just important that you maintain that same approach all the way through. Like so.
In summary, here are some things to note. Make sure you always check the work order and have everything you need before leaving the yard. Pressure washing is a two-person job. One should be holding the wand while the other is setting up or assisting. Always do a final walk around, making sure the job quality is at par with our standards. Also ensure that before leaving the job site, all our equipment is accounted for, and that property gates are closed. Please note that further training for pressure washing will be provided at the yard.